Hello everyone. Hello وسهلا. تفضل.
Hello. Hi everyone. Thank you for coming. I just want to add one other thing. Rakan is also vice chairman of the Diriyah Bينالي Foundation. This is why we're having this discussion today about, the obvious. So first of all, thank you all for coming this morning. I hope you had a restful night after last night. We wanted to start by addressing the obvious question of why an Islamic Arts Biennale. So we're going to have a conversation, a casual conversation, Rakan and I, about where it all began, how did it start, why, and where and when, and all the. So, Rakan, how did it all begin?
Well, so this idea of doing a platform for Islamic arts preceded becoming a biennial. His Highness Prince Bedr, the Minister of Culture, in 2019 signed an agreement with the ISESCO organization to have Saudi Arabia host collaboration, education programs for Islamic arts in general. Now, the Diriyah Bينالي Foundation was set up for the contemporary biennial, and during the off year, in 2019, we were planning for 2023, and the meeting point of doing something that is so, frankly, related to the identity of the Ministry of Culture to Saudi Arabia in a format that has never been done, to think about a biennial format for Islamic arts that can bring together ancient, historic, current, and hopefully inspire future productions of art was just felt like the right thing to do. After the team and the Diriyah Bينالي Foundation sort of started looking at options of locations and how we ended up here, I think is also an important thing. We'll talk about that. It all sort of came together. It felt that for the Diriyah Bينالي Foundation, the Islamic Arts Biennale ended up being a whole reason for being, and we're happy to be here.
So let's go back. This was pre-COVID, I think.
Yep, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
A lot changed.
A lot changed, yes. Pre-COVID, and it was meant to be. What was the main idea? I remember you briefing me on the idea and what you had in mind, what Bedr had in mind. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I think the idea around the topic is we've had a lot of discussions about the topic of Islamic art as part of the culture strategy of the kingdom. And I think, so I'm happy we have people from institutions around the world here who have focused on this and spent a lot of effort and time and generations really on Islamic art. But I think the Saudi point of view was always that this is something so desperately really in need of reframing, of new life into the idea of Islamic art. I think the Muslim world in general was looking at Islamic art as a discipline that became a little bit removed from locations in the Muslim world. And I think the idea wasn't to, gain primacy in any way. The idea was to build a new convening platform for this discipline, to build it for institutions, for artists, to breathe new life into the practice itself of contemporary artists from the region here, contemporary artists from around the world inspired by inherited legacies of Islamic civilization. And that's what we are attempting to do, I think, in this Bينالي, to make a platform that, and as you see in Al-Madar, with 12 institutions, with special tributes to the late Sheikh Nasser al-Sabah, who for 40 years was a safeguarder and keeper of a lot of these treasures. For institutions like the Ahmed Baba Institute in Mali, for Uzbekistan, for the Museum of Islamic Art in Qatar, for people to come together to create opportunities for more collaboration using new inspiration from the land of the Haramain. So this is very original very appropriate as a place to get inspired about the future of Islamic art, and we hope a lot of people, visitors, can benefit from it.
Yeah, and at the beginning we were thinking maybe, I remember we had that conversation of whether it should be institutions. You know, it was always about kind of wanting it to be you wanted it to be a bit more inclusive with having participations from different countries. But then we thought, you know, we want to make it more institutions that have been at the forefront of collecting Islamic arts. And I think, don't you think in the future we're going to have more pavilions?
Yeah, so there was that. We had a lot of conversations about what kind of Biennale is it? Is it a national Olympics of some sort? And that's not the intent at all. So what we're happy about is what we have is institutions that are representing collections, representing nations, representing individuals, and representing scholarship that are coming together. The point here is not sort of to have pavilions of every country and so on, but I think this year we are focusing in a big way on the Haramain, so we are dedicating sections to Mecca and Medina. I think Al-Haramain will always be at the center of the Islamic Art Biennial, but hopefully Al-Madar and the institutions participating will continue to grow, and hopefully a lot of people here will be with us in 2 years as participants. Come on.
Hopefully. Okay, let's tell everybody a little bit. Everybody keeps asking us about the Hajj terminal. Everyone. And you know, I'm from Jeddah. I never, growing up, taking the Medina road, we always used to pass next to this terminal, but we were never allowed to enter because it was only, it was a restricted area for only pilgrims or people coming for Umrah or Hajj through tour operators, and they would land in that airport over there. So we were just really kind of confused as to where would be the best location. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, you remember.
I do.
We had a location scoping. We had a location scoping trip a few years ago in Jeddah, and among the places that we saw, we knew the Islamic Arts Biennale should take place in Jeddah. Jeddah has been the gateway to Mecca for pilgrims. Jeddah is the center of the contemporary art movement, the recent contemporary art movement in Saudi Arabia. So Jeddah was the city, but the location was less clear a few years ago. So among the places we went to were historical palaces in Jeddah. We wanted to see locations that could evoke the emotion of the purpose of this Islamic Biennale. When we came to see the Hajj terminal, it just felt, again, it was destiny in a way. This was a building completed over 40 years ago with the sole purpose of serving pilgrims. This was a building that is a monument to the kingdom's commitment to the service of Islam, to service of pilgrims from around the world. It is also a monument or an iconic architectural design, as you all know. And really the risk for us was always how do we do this and give this place justice. We worked with an amazing group of architects and construction companies to help us put together the venue without interfering with the serenity of the location. But the point was, how do you bring a visitor as close as possible to the experience of a pilgrim, and without actually going to Mecca? We're trying to bring all of you visitors from around the world as close as possible to what it means to be under this canopy, to the journey of a mu'tamir, of the journey of a hajj. And then the structure itself, the simplicity of this tensile material is much like Ayman Yusri's work inside. It's very simple, but it's really sort of a unifying canvas for people from all countries around the world that come here. And hopefully today, as we have them during the month of Dhul Hijjah and every year in Saudi Arabia, today this becomes a host for people from all over the world who are experiencing a cultural an artistic offering that's very related to the journey that people 40 years ago came for.
Yeah, but do you want to tell people a little bit of a sneak peek as to what was the option for us first? Which terminal?
Well, we were supposed to be in that terminal in the beginning.
And we actually thought maybe we'll be between Hajj and Umrah. What were we thinking?
And it was supposed to be 5,000 square meters that was given to us. So as you know, that's still a functioning airport. Mu'tamirs and pilgrims still travel through there. That's why we couldn't turn off the lights yesterday. And of course, I think people didn't understand in the beginning of our request the scale of the intent of the foundation and the ministry in putting together the biennial. So thankfully, we had amazing support. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince himself has had a big say in how this terminal became converted now to a permanent cultural center. So I think a lot of people may also be asking questions, what happens after April? The Ministry of Culture is putting together a plan to make this one of the preeminent cultural centers of the kingdom, and certainly the preeminent one in Jeddah. So I think the message also of reusing and sustainably repurposing a building that existed to own and be proud of the legacy of these 40 years of the original intent of having it as a terminal for pilgrims, to repurpose it to still serve a cultural purpose and hopefully become a launch pad for more and more of the cultural developments of the kingdom is something we're all excited about.
Yeah, I think 5,000 square meters would have been so much easier to put together, honestly.
Q&A? Q&A?
So I just want to ask one more question. What happens in 2 years?
Well, you all come back, inshallah. And I think in 2 years, I hope that in 2 years we all come back and we will have done a lot of work together in these intervening 2 years, not just come back for another show. I think we'll be announcing over the next 90 days a number of initiatives that have to do with academic programs, with some research grants around the topics that are presented in the show, in Awwal Bayt and in Al-Madar. There are artifacts that are on display. I don't know how many of you have already seen the full exhibition, especially from the Haramain, that have never been on public display. These are all objects that the Ministry of Culture and the Diriyah Biennale Foundation is going to have a big role in, not just restoring, but around the research about their histories. A lot of these things are because they've just come into public view now, they are objects that have not had the scholarship that they deserve, and I think will uncover a lot of new histories that we haven't known about especially Mecca and Medina. So we'll talk a lot about these, but we'll come back for a bigger show. Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted you to tell people what were the objects.
So specifically in Gallery 4, the wooden column, which you might have seen, is something that's never been displayed. This wooden column was put in the Kaaba during the construction of the Kaaba by Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who's one of the companions of the Prophets, in 64 Hijri. That would be around 700 AD. That column has stayed in the Kaaba for 1,300 years. It was only moved out of the Kaaba about 40 years ago or so. And even during the reconstructions of the Kaaba in 1039 Hijri, when the flood overtook Mecca and Murad IV reconstructed the Kaaba, that column always was put back into the Kaaba. Until 1417 Hijri, when, for really to save the column itself, the conditions were not there, so it was taken into storage. And it's the first time that it's out in the public. Another is the King Abdulaziz door, which you might have seen. This is the first door ordered by King Abdulaziz to be placed in the Kaaba in 1943. This door has also, Sheikh Mohammed al-Mojan and Dr. Ma'raj Mirza, especially our scholars in Saudi Arabia, have researched a lot of this, but the world of Islamic art institutions haven't seen these objects. They tell us a lot about the history of patronage in Mecca. They tell us a lot about the history of craftsmanship in Mecca. These were all made in Mecca. The honoring texts at the bottom of that tower note the actual chief of the goldsmiths of Mecca, Sheikh Mahmoud Badr, note the calligrapher, Ibrahim al-Arafi. And I think these bringing the stories of patronage and craftsmanship and artisans of Mecca and Medina and of the land of Saudi Arabia into the conversation of global Islamic art really is a legacy that we at the Ministry of Culture will work very hard on bringing. Mecca and Medina were the birthplace of this civilization. They are still the conveners of 1 billion people every year, and 5 times a day, in fact. And I think the main legacy of this Biennale on a personal level for me will be to bring this perspective into a global conversation and to hopefully enrich a global conversation in Islamic art and this discipline and what does it mean. Not to take anything away from that conversation, but I see a big gap in the dialogue and the discourse that hopefully we can try to enrich.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody has a lot of questions. We don't want to take too much of your time with my questions. So we want to open it up for Q&A. Anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer.
If we don't have any questions, I'd like to explain what this chair is.
Yes, please.
Sue.
Are you considering to have some constants, exhibitions throughout the years and maybe keeping some of the artifacts that are already installed so that I'm not keeping them.
So
Population to visit.
yes, so there will be, inshallah, a lot of exhibitions in the space. The artifacts themselves, can you hear me? Yeah. The artifacts themselves will undergo, like I said, these restoration programs. There are some other things that have not been displayed from Mecca and Medina, from our cooperation with the authority for the presidency for the 2 holy mosques, who have worked with the Ministry of Culture on bringing together all of these old objects from Mecca and Medina. But yes, much like we have gotten your support and Dar al-Athar Islamiyya's support to bring their treasures here, we also anticipate and hope to find the partnerships to bring a lot of the heritage and Islamic collections of Saudi Arabia to the world in a more organized way.
Any
Okay,
other questions? Yes. Someone's there.
One more. عشان الوقت.
Hello?
Hi. Hello.
Yeah. My question is, how do you link modern art and contemporary art, especially in the Middle East and the Arab world, to Islamic art? And
You want to take
where
that?
do you
Take
think
it.
the link is coming, and how is this going to evolve, and how can they come together?
But maybe I want to take a crack at this.
So I'll leave it with you.
So I think to think of a contemporary artist who lives in Jeddah and to not call that artist in any way an Islamic artist really is a travesty. No, يعني, the artist is touched by this civilization in one way or another. It doesn't mean that contemporary art doesn't have to be arabesque and calligraphy to be called Islamic contemporary art. And I think we see that today. We see Nasser al-Salam's work in Gallery 4 around the door I mentioned. It's one of our foremost contemporary artists, who's a calligrapher by trade, but he's a contemporary artist. And I think collapsing the temporal dimension of Islamic art onto itself really is an ambition for this Biennale. Now, it may be a controversial one. It may be not to everybody's liking, but it's really something that we believe in. We think that much in the same way that Islamic art is broad geographically, it has been broad across centuries, and it's still being produced today. People are touched either by the spirituality of Islam, they are touched by the craftsmanship, they are touched by a story in Jeddah of Samarkand. But these connections across time and across geographies are very important. So I don't see the notion of a disconnect between modern or contemporary and ancient or old as something that we would like to further or a notion that should continue. يعني I think that's a little bit of my view.
Thank you. For me, the visit last night was not an exhibition. It was a deeply moving spiritual and emotional experience. And I wonder who you expect the audiences to be and how they will engage with this experience.
Take it.
Thank you so much. I'm really, that like moved my heart when you say that. So honestly, our audiences are, well, this is the first time in the world in history. So I'm really curious to see who will be who's going to be our frequent visitor. But I'm also very sure that the pilgrims and the people coming for Umrah as well are going to be very, very interested, and we want to give them a chance to see these really important works in one space. You know, telling people that you have the Kaaba keys, or the Abdullah ibn Zubayr column, or the King Abdul Aziz door, or the King Fahad Kiswa is in one location, is plus the works that are extremely spiritual, and you know, you go from salah, you know, wudu, adhan, like that whole concept of ritual, you know, really takes you home. So we're actually hoping to get a lot of different visitors, and we're prepping ourselves to do so. We're going to be receiving, hopefully, how many? Maybe.
So we have an agreement with the Ministry of Hajj. All of the tour operators for Umrah will have a special program to add this as a stop for pilgrims coming to Mecca. We have a school busing program with 1,400 schools from the Western region over the 90 days. Maybe you saw some of our branded buses. And we have the public at large in Jeddah, which hopefully will continue to come not just once for the exhibition, but the public program will have workshops, a children's camp during the school break, and children's programs throughout the year, throughout the 90 days. So hopefully it's not just for the practitioners and the people who are predisposed to come to art exhibitions, but for the public at large to come. I anticipate a lot of regional visits for the Biennale, and I'm very thankful of our location as well, and logistically easy for people to fly into Jeddah to come here. And then we shouldn't forget that our last month of the 90 days is the holy month of Ramadan, which brings a lot of reconnection with Islamic heritage, and I think we will have a different complexion to the Biennale in Ramadan. We anticipate a lot of iftar gatherings and suhoors. Our opening hours will be shifted to accommodate for the lifestyle change in Ramadan, but it will also have a large number of pilgrims, which will hopefully be adding this as a stop in their journey.
Yeah, so we're really going to try to see, because we also added, we have like a variety of languages. So we have 15 ushers speak 15 languages, you know, for people coming for Umrah. They'll basically come, do their Umrah, or go to Mecca, Medina, and then on their way back to the terminal, they will hopefully stop here, see the show, and yeah. So we're expecting a very interesting 3 months, inshallah.